The throne room fell silent as Queen Velara of the Draxan Empire raised her hand. Her 4 advisors ceased their urgent whispers about the human delegation that had just arrived on her flagship. Humans were a curiosity in this sector of the galaxy, a young species that had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. Most galactic powers viewed them as insignificant, barely worth acknowledging. "Bring them in," Velara commanded, her crystalline voice echoing through the vast chamber. Her violet skin shimmered under the bioluminescent lights, and her 3 eyes focused on the entrance with practiced indifference. She had ruled the Draxan for 60 cycles, ever since the previous monarch had fallen in the War of the Outer Rim. Her reputation as a ruthless strategist had kept her empire secure, expanding its borders through both diplomacy and calculated military action. The doors slid open with a hiss. 3 humans entered, their small frames almost comical compared to the towering Draxan guards flanking them. They wore simple diplomatic uniforms, their faces showing a mixture of nervousness and determination. The lead diplomat stepped forward, a woman with graying hair and keen eyes. Beside her stood a military officer with numerous medals, and behind them both walked a man who seemed oddly familiar. Velara leaned forward slightly, her middle eye narrowing as she studied the 3rd human. He was older, perhaps in his 50s by human standards, with weathered features and a scar running along his left cheek. Something about the way he carried himself triggered a memory buried deep in her mind. "Your Majesty," the female diplomat began, bowing in the Draxan manner. "I am Ambassador Lisa Reynolds of the United Earth Coalition. We come seeking an audience to discuss trade agreements and mutual defense pacts." Velara barely heard the words. Her gaze remained fixed on the scarred man. He met her eyes briefly, then looked away, a flicker of recognition crossing his face. That gesture confirmed what her instincts were screaming at her. "You," she said, rising from her throne. The sudden movement sent her advisors into a panic. The guards raised their energy weapons, pointing them at the humans, who immediately raised their hands in surrender. But Velara was not moving in aggression. She descended the steps of her dais slowly, her elaborate robes flowing behind her like liquid shadow. She stopped 3 paces from the humans, ignoring the protocols that forbade such proximity without proper security measures. "Lower your weapons," she ordered without taking her eyes off the scarred man. "Ambassador Reynolds, who is this man?" The ambassador glanced at her companion in confusion. "This is Commander James Miller, Your Majesty. He serves as our military advisor and security detail for this mission." "Commander Miller," Velara repeated the name slowly. 68 cycles ago, when I was nothing but a junior officer serving on a research vessel, we were ambushed by pirates near the Kelran Nebula. Do you remember the Kelran Nebula, Commander?" James Miller's jaw tightened. He nodded slowly. "I do, Your Majesty." The throne room erupted in confused murmurs. The advisors exchanged bewildered looks. Ambassador Reynolds turned to Miller with wide eyes. "James, what is she talking about?" Velara continued, her voice taking on a distant quality as memory overtook her. "Our ship was crippled. The pirates boarded us. They were Krell, savage, and merciless. They killed most of my crew within minutes. I was wounded, bleeding out in the cargo hold. I should have died there." She took another step closer to Miller. A ship appeared. A small human vessel, completely outmatched and outgunned. It should have fled. Any rational captain would have. The Krell had a heavy destroyer. The human ship was barely a transport freighter with some jury-rigged weapons. "But you didn't flee," she said directly to Miller. "You attacked. You drew their fire, gave my remaining crew time to restore emergency power. You boarded the Krell destroyer with a team of only 4 humans. I watched through the security feeds. You fought through that ship like demons. Miller's expression remained neutral, but Ambassador Reynolds was staring at him in shock. "James, you never mentioned this." "It wasn't relevant to our current mission," Miller said quietly. Velara laughed, a sound like chiming bells. "Not relevant? Commander, you saved my life. When that Krell captain had his blade at my throat, you shot him through the skull from 30 meters away. You pulled me out of that wreckage. You stayed with me until a Draxan patrol arrived 3 hours later. Then you left without even telling me your name." She circled him slowly, her eyes examining every detail. "I spent years trying to find you. I sent inquiries across dozens of systems. No one could tell me anything about the human ship that had saved a Draxan research vessel. The registration codes you provided were false. You vanished like a ghost. Why?" she demanded, stopping in front of him again. "Why did you do it? Why risk your life and your crew for aliens you had never met?" Miller finally met her gaze directly. "Because it was the right thing to do, Your Majesty. Your people were under attack. We had the capability to help. The math was simple. The math was simple," Velara repeated incredulously. "You faced a Krell destroyer with a freighter. You lost 2 of your crew members in that boarding action. I read the after-action reports. The odds of your survival were less than 8%. That is not simple math, Commander. That is either madness or something else entirely." "My people have a saying," Miller replied. "We do not leave the fallen behind. Your crew were not our enemies. They needed help. We gave it." One of Velara's advisors, an elderly male named Torvin, spoke up. "Your Majesty, surely you cannot trust these claims. This human could be fabricating this story." Velara turned to her advisor with an icy glare. "I have a scar here." She touched the left side of her neck, where her royal collar covered the skin. She pulled the collar aside, revealing a jagged silver line. "From the Krell blade. I remember every second of that day, Torvin. I remember his face covered in blood and ash. I remember him carrying me through fire. Do not presume to tell me what I can trust." She turned back to the human delegation. "Ambassador Reynolds, your people seek trade and defense agreements. For 6 cycles, I have refused to meet with Earth delegations. Do you know why?" Reynolds shook her head. "Because I did not understand your species. You appeared weak, disorganized, fractious. Your ships were crude. Your technology barely adequate. I saw no advantage in alliance with such a primitive race." Velara's voice softened. "But I failed to account for something we Draxan had forgotten during our centuries of dominance." She placed her hand over her heart in a Draxan gesture of solemn oath. "I forgot that true strength is not measured in weapons or technology. It is measured in character, in the willingness to act when action is difficult, in the courage to help those who cannot help themselves." Velara returned to her throne, but did not sit. Instead, she stood beside it, addressing her entire court. "This human, this Commander James Miller, demonstrated more honor in one day than many warriors show in a lifetime. He asks nothing in return. He did not even reveal his identity to claim the reward I offered. He simply did what he believed was right." She looked directly at Ambassador Reynolds. "You asked for trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. I will grant you more than that. The Draxan Empire recognizes Earth as a full partner. You will have access to our trade networks, our technology exchanges, and our military protection. In return, I ask only that you maintain the principles that your commander embodied that day in the Kelleran Nebula." The throne room erupted in shocked protests. Advisors shouted objections. Guards looked uncertain. But Velara raised her hand again, and silence fell. "I am queen," she said with absolute authority. "My word is law. This alliance begins today." She descended from the dais again and approached Miller. She removed a medallion from her own neck, a symbol of the highest honor in Draxan culture, and placed it around his. For 68 cycles, I have carried a debt. Today, I begin to repay it. Not just to you, Commander, but to your entire species. You showed me that humanity possesses something we Draxan must learn again. What is that, Your Majesty? Reynolds asked quietly. Hope, Velara replied. The hope that strangers can become allies. That the weak can defend the strong. That doing what is right matters more than calculating what is profitable. She smiled, an expression that transformed her regal features. Your people are young, Ambassador. But perhaps that is precisely what this old galaxy needs. Fresh eyes, brave hearts, the willingness to help even when logic says to flee. Miller cleared his throat. Your Majesty, I was just doing my job. No, Commander, Velara corrected him gently. You were being human. And today, I learned that being human might be the most important thing in the universe. She turned to her court. Prepare a state dinner. Tonight, we celebrate not just an alliance between empires, but the honoring of a debt too long unpaid. Let the galaxy know that the Draxan Empire stands with Earth, and let them know why. As the court dissolved into organized chaos, preparing for the unexpected celebration, Velara stood with the human delegation. For the first time in 6 decades, she felt something she had not experienced since that day in the cargo hold, bleeding and certain of death. She felt grateful. And in a galaxy often ruled by fear and power, gratitude was perhaps the rarest treasure of all.